Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Daf 15b. 15b at the top of the Amud, the top of the page, starting with the words Hemis, Shori, Es Ploni. At the bottom of the previous Amud, the Gemara suggested a proof from a brisa in Kesubos 41a. If one admits, my ox killed so-and-so, or my ox killed so-and-so's ox, then this person pays based on his own admission. This would seem to indicate that it's not a knas because of the rule of one who admits in a fine is exempt from it. So, in this case, he or she admitted, and he still pays. The Gemara analyzes the Mishnah. What is the halacha of the Mishnah not stated with regard to an innocuous ox? If so, this Mishnah proves that one is required to pay for half the cost of the damage based on one's own admission, which demonstrates that the payment is monetary restitution and not a fine. The Gemara rejects the proof. No, the halacha of the Mishnah is stated with regard to a forewarned ox. The Gemara asks, but according to this explanation, if it had been an innocuous ox that gored, what would be the halacha? Would one say that indeed he does not pay based on his own admission? But if so, rather than teaching in the latter clause of the Mishnah in Ketubot, if one admits, my ox killed so-and-so's Canaanite slave, he does not pay based on his own admission. Let the Mishnah differentiate and teach the distinction with regard to the case raised in the first clause itself. The reason for the distinction between the cases when one's ox kills a Jew or a Canaanite slave is that in the first one pays monetary restitution, while in the second one pays a fine. If the Mishnah wishes to demonstrate the difference between a fine and monetary restitution with regard to admission, then instead of introducing a new case, the Mishnah would have modified the case of the previous clause. Bameh Devarim Amurim, the Mishnah would have continued, in what case is this statement said? Bemuat al b'tam einu mishal al piatzmo. In what case is this statement, the first clause said, it is said with regard to a forewarned ox, but with regard to an admission that one's innocuous ox gored, he does not pay based on his own admission. The fact that the Mishnah does not do so suggests that, in fact, one is required to pay for half the cost of the damage based on one's own admission that is innocuous ox gored. Evidently, the payment is considered to be monetary restitution. Kula bemuad kamairi. The Gemara rejects this. The reason the Mishnah did not raise the distinction between an innocuous and forewarned ox is not because that distinction is not a valid one, but because the entire Mishnah speaks only of cases of a forewarned ox. Accordingly, no proof can be adduced from the Mishnah. Tashma, the Gemara suggests further coming here. Zehaklal, this is the principle. Kol Mishalim Yoser al Mashehezik. Anyone who pays more than the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission. Kol Mishalim Yoser al Mashehezik. Einu Mishalim al Piatzmo. The Gemara infers, what is it not that he were liable to pay less than the cost of that which he damaged he would pay based on his own admission? Since when an innocuous ox gores, its owner is liable to pay more than the cost of the damage. The payment is clearly not monetary restitution, and this is why it is not payable based on one's own admission. The Gemara rejects the inference. No, one should infer only that were he liable to pay as much as the cost of that which he damaged, he pays based on his own admission. If the sum to be paid is more or less than the cost of that which he damaged, he would not pay based on his own admission. The Gemara asks, but according to that opinion, when one is liable to pay less than the cost of the damage, what would be the halacha? Would one say that indeed he does not pay based on his own admission? If so, instead of teaching this is the principle, anyone who pays more than the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission, let the Mishnah teach instead, this is the principle. Anyone who does not pay as much as the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission. As that statement indicates cases where one is liable to pay more than the cost of that which he damaged, and it also indicates cases where one is liable to pay less than the cost of that which he damaged. Evidently, the Mishnah holds that where one's liability is for less than the cost of the damage, it is payable based on one's own admission. This therefore provides a conclusive refutation of the opinion that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine. V'hilchasa, palga, nizka, kanasa. The Gemara adds, the halacha is that the payment for the half of the cost of the damage is considered a fine. The Gemara notes the obvious inconsistency. How can it be that the Gemara offers a conclusive refutation of the opinion that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine, and then state the halacha in accordance with that opinion? The Gemara explains, yes, yes, tamamai havitz yufta mishum delokatani kemoshe hizik. Yes, the halacha may be in accordance with that opinion because of the following resolution of the refutation. What is the reason that the Gemara held that there is a conclusive refutation of the opinion that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine? Because the Mishnah does not teach anyone who does not pay as much as the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission. This is not, in fact, a conclusive refutation, as even if one holds that the payment of half the cost of the damage for an innocuous ox is considered monetary restitution, one can still explain why the Mishnah doesn't discuss cases where one is liable for less than the cost of the damage. This is because the Tana cannot make an absolute statement about such cases that one never pays based on one's own admission. Since there is an obligation for one to pay for half the cost of the damage resulting from pebbles inadvertently propelled by the foot of a walking animal, which, through tradition, it is learned that this payment is monetary restitution, and it is due to that reason that the Mishnah does not teach cases where one's liability is valued at less than the cost of the damage. The Gemara considers the ramifications of the Brisa, and now that you have said that the halacha is that the payment of half the cost of the damage is a fine with regard to this innocuous dog that ate lambs, or this innocuous cat that ate the chicken, which is atypical behavior for dogs and cats, we do not collect the payment for these acts in the courts in Babylonia. Since, I would think a cat does eat a chicken. Cats eat all kinds of birds and stuff. But anyway, since it is not common for these animals to eat those animals, since these acts are classified as goring, irrespective of the fact that the animal gained pleasure from the damage for which it would normally be classified in the category of eating. Therefore, in cases where the animals had not performed this act of damaging before, and were therefore considered innocuous, the owner is liable for only half the cost of the damage, which is a fine. Since the collection of fines may be imposed only by judges who have been ordained, and ordination is given only in Eretz Yisrael, these payments are not collected in Babylonia. V'lo magbinan beBavel. Wow. V'hani mili beravavi ava bezutre orchehu. The Gemara adds, and this manner applies only where they attack large animals, as it is atypical behavior for them, but where they attack small animals, since that is their typical behavior, it is classified as eating, for which the owner pays the full cost of the damage, which is certainly considered monetary restitution. Accordingly, the payment is collected by the courts in Babylonia. And even in a case where the payment is considered a fine, if the injured party seized the property of the owner of the belligerent animal in order to cover the loss, we do not reclaim it from him, since he is entitled to it. And also, if the injured party said to the court, "Fix a time for me to go to Eretz Yisrael to present the case before ordained judges," we fix a time for him and require the owner of the belligerent animal to go to the court in Eretz Yisrael at that time. And if he does not go, we excommunicate him for disobeying the orders of the court. And either way, we excommunicate the owner of the belligerent animal until he removes the danger. Example, by killing the animal or otherwise neutralizing the danger. The justification for this is from the ruling of Rabbi Natan, as it is taught in a Braita. That Rabbi Natan says, from where is it derived that one may not raise a vicious dog in his house, and one may not set up an unstable ladder in his house? The verse states, "You shall not bring blood into your house." The pasuk is Lo tasim damim b'veisecha. Deuteronomy 22, verse 8. One may not allow a hazardous situation or item to remain in one's house. As long as the hazard remains, the owner is in violation of this verse, and therefore the court may excommunicate him for failing to remove the danger. And now we start a new Mishnah. Although it might be a good place to stop because of time, and we'll pick it up in part 2.